Well, Tashara, we've been talking about the rise in violent crime in Dallas now for going on 3 years. Chief Eddie Garcia was hired to help slow it down, and he is presenting that plan to the city council today for how he is going to do that. The 3-tier crime reduction plan, this is what it looks like. Hotspot policing, place network investigations, and focused deterrence and blight abatement. His presentation says most of the violent crime we're seeing is concentrated in a relatively small number of specific areas. Hotspot policing will increase police presence and visibility in those areas they've identified by using crime data. He says similar tactics led to significant decreases in violent crime calls in both Las Vegas and Philadelphia. Place network investigations means finding those repeat and common offenders that could be part of a criminal network and focusing on places where those networks of criminals meet. He cites Cincinnati as a city that saw a 72% decline in shooting victims in one area during the first 2 years of a program. Finally, focused deterrence and blight abatement is a longer-term strategy, cleaning up vacant and dilapidated buildings that draw criminal behavior, and then working with people considered high risk for criminal activity to change those behaviors that could lead them to commit more crimes. But Garcia says a big part of this plan is working with the community to earn trust and getting them involved.
Our ultimate goal is the reduction of crime with an increase in community trust. Both are possible and both are needed. We will strive for both, and now these concepts are not mutually exclusive. Our men and women will continue to partner with our community and strive to achieve a safer Dallas.
And Mayor Eric Johnson, before the presentation was made, said that that presentation is likely the most important document to come out of City Hall this year to protect the citizens of Dallas. And Garcia, in his presentation, said we saw a 14% increase in violent crime from 2018 to 2019, and then an additional 5% from 2019 to 2020. Tashara, back to you.